Jenny, it's a huge pleasure to have you here with us. I'm very, very excited, very, very happy to have you here. We had some conversations about this in the last few years. I always was very interested with your knowledge, and I'm so glad that you helped me a lot last weekend. You saved my life because you gave me a lot of good tips that I applied immediately, and my presentation was really good because I could connect better the ideas, organize better the flow, and was a huge success. So thank you so much. We are
You're
very happy
welcome.
to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And to build on what you just said, I think communication is becoming such an important topic in our field, and yet nobody takes the time to step back and help people understand every piece of the puzzle of communication. And so we talk about it at a very broad level. And what my goal is to help make it accessible to everyone, whether you're just getting started in your career or you're 30 years into your career. And so that's what I'm hoping to do today.
Very good. Let's see it.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Oh yeah, I need to make you here. Now you are the host. Please, before we done, don't forget to send me back this host
Okay.
control,
You might have to
just
remind me.
to make sure that we can save the video.
Okay.
Good. Very good, Jenny.
Okay. All right. As Felix mentioned, today I'm going to be giving you 5 communication rules that you all need to follow if you want to be successful. I like to open up anything about communication when I speak to coaches with this quote that comes from Sports Psychology for Coaches. And the quote reads, "Communication skills may be the best predictor of coaching success. The life of a coach is filled with a steady flow of communication. Coaches talk, read, write, gesture, listen, teach, console, persuade, demonstrate, and observe. So it is no secret that your success as a coach will depend on your ability to communicate effectively." If that's not reason enough to appreciate the impact that developed communication skills can have on your training or coaching career, then hopefully more of what I'll provide you over the course of the next 45 minutes will do that for you. I want to spend our time teaching you how to communicate effectively. I can't teach you everything, but my hope is that the 5 rules that I'll introduce to you toward the end of this presentation will be a kickstart for you and develop an interest for you to continue to practice and own these communication skills. How I'm planning to do that? I first want to stress or prove to you the role that communication plays in your career and your ability to be successful, but then also how having developed communication skills improve the quality of your life. Following that, I am going to further define what effective communication is. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, we talk a lot about being able to communicate well, but a lot of us don't know what that means. In an abstract sense, we do, but a lot of us don't know how to take that and put it into practice so that we can, in fact, effectively communicate. And then finally, I'll introduce to you 5 communication skills that you can walk away and begin to apply immediately after this webinar. Why should you care about communication skills or what I have to share with you today? When it comes to your career in fitness, generally speaking, there are 3 things. So you either want one of these 3 one of these three things, or you might want all of these three things. And that's, you want to be happy in your career, you want to make money, and we're all looking for status, whether that status is to be respected by our clients or it's to elevate ourselves within the field. But we all want, again, either one of these things or all of these things over the course of our career. In order to achieve those three things, happiness, making more money, and a status, whatever that looks like for you, you need to be proficient in two areas. And these are what I call the two competencies of success. On the left-hand side, there's your technical knowledge and skills, and then on the right-hand side is your ability to communicate. Your technical knowledge and skills are the knowledge and skills that you use to do the day-to-day responsibilities of your job. Your technical knowledge and skills are what you use to design programs, to adjust programs based on your clients' or athletes' needs. They are what empower you to understand what's going on while you're training somebody. And then your ability to communicate is simply your ability to relay all of that technical knowledge and skills to the people that you're trying to impact. Those two competencies develop independently over the course of our careers. And so that top line that you see is how most of us tend to develop our technical knowledge and skills. From year zero, from the day that we enter this career in this field, we spend time and money to develop our technical knowledge and skills. We take courses like CFSC, we take courses with Stuart McGill, we do reading. We try to know as much as there is to know about our body and about training. But communication doesn't get that same intensity. So as you can see, that line is relatively flat. It has a slight increase, and that comes as a result of simply being exposed to coaching and interacting with people. But you'll notice that there is a big difference between how those two skill sets develop. We spend almost all of our time and money developing our technical skill set, but few of us spend that same amount of time and money developing our communication skills. When there is a gap like this that you see in these two lines between our technical knowledge and skills and our ability to communicate, there's this ceiling of success. What that means is that over the course of your career, as you get further into your career, if there is that big gap, if you've spent almost too much time developing technical knowledge and skills, but you haven't done the same to develop your communication skills, you reach a ceiling in your career where you might not be able to make as much money as you want. You might not be able to generate a new client base or maintain long-term relationships with your clients, or you simply cannot reach that next stage in your career, which could mean that you get asked to present at conferences, on webinars, or presenting to your peers. So what we need to do is figure out a way how to level out these two competencies so that we can break down that ceiling of success and achieve whatever it is we want to achieve over the course of our career. To do that, we need to invest as much time and maybe money to develop our communication skills with the same intensity that we develop our technical skills. When we do that, that ceiling of success falls down, okay? And we can break through and we can make as much money as we're looking to make. We can connect with our clients and our colleagues in the way that we want. And all of a sudden, all of these opportunities that we've been looking for but maybe haven't achieved or been offered start to come our way, because people see that not only do we know what we're talking about, but we're able to share that knowledge in a way that makes sense and resonates with the people that we're sharing it with. When your technical knowledge and skills are equally as strong as your ability to communicate, and vice versa, your smart ideas, which are your technical knowledge and skills, also get you places. And so the people that you are trying to educate, whether those be your clients or those are your peers or colleagues in the industry, you're reaching the full potential of your knowledge. When we cannot communicate, all of those smart ideas that we have don't take us anywhere, because we need other people to understand our ideas in order to be successful. And that's why it's so important that we develop our ability to communicate as much as we develop our technical knowledge and skills. The second thing that I mentioned is that when you develop your communication skills, you will find more success in your career and you will have a higher quality of life. And I want to tell you why. Before I do that, I need to define what success is. At a broad level, success is your ability to achieve expected results. The key word there is expected, because there are times when we achieve results that were unanticipated. And yes, those are positive and they can help our career. But in order to be successful, we need to plan for the results that we want to achieve. And then we need to work to achieve those results. But that doesn't only happen once. Success is not a destination that is far down the line that we're working towards. Success is something that happens on a daily basis. Each day we wake up, we need to consider, what is it that I want to achieve today to be successful, and then go into my day and work to achieve those results. Another way to say that is, don't get attached to your success. Instead, get attached to seeing success. Every day is an opportunity for you to be successful. And if you can be successful day after day after day, that is what builds up to a successful career over the course of many years. So I said that success is your ability to achieve expected results. What are some of those expected results that we as trainers and coaches have? Generally speaking, they fall into two buckets. We have results that we want to achieve with our clients, and then we have results that we want to achieve with ourselves. What are some of those results that we want to achieve with our clients? Maybe we want to help them lose weight. We might want to help them get out of pain, or we're trying to help them improve their performance if they're an athlete. The expected results that we have for ourselves might be that we want recognition from our clients, from our colleagues, or from our field. We're looking for more responsibility from our employer or from the industry so that we can grow our career. Or we're simply looking to achieve access. That's access to meet more people that can help us develop our career, or access to opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be available to us. In order to achieve these results, we need to do a few things. In order to help our clients lose weight, we need to get them to trust us, we need to be able to educate them, and we need to be able to motivate them. To help our clients or athletes get out of pain, we need to be able to empathize with them and listen to what their experience is so that they trust us enough to help them. In order to help our athletes improve their performance, we need to be able to develop a positive relationship with them. We need to have the skills to push them. And we need to help them be dedicated and motivate them to continue to come in and work with us and train consistently over the long haul. And we play a big role in their ability to remain dedicated to their programs. On the lower side, in order to get recognition, we need to be able to self-promote or talk about ourselves to our peers and our employers or within the industry, and we need to be likable, because people who are liked also get recognized. If we want more responsibility, we need to be assertive in asking for that responsibility, and we also need to be trustworthy so that when we are given responsibility, the people that gave that to us trust that we will be able to get it done. And then if we want more access to people within the industry or opportunities within the industry, we need to have the skills to network with other professionals and be clear in asking for what we want and where we want our careers to go. To achieve those things, there's one common theme, and that is your ability to communicate. Communication is at the base of all of those expected results. And so you need to be able to communicate well to build trust, to educate other people, to motivate, to empathize and listen. You need communication skills to be able to promote yourself and be assertive with asking for what you need. You need communication skills to be able to successfully network within our field and again, be clear in what it is you want. And so when we think about that, what does that mean? That means that communication, or your ability to communicate, is necessary and might be the most important thing when it comes to you being successful. Because without developing all of those communication skills, we cannot achieve success, because again, success is our ability to get through to our clients, to help them lose weight, get out of pain, and it's our ability to promote ourselves so that we can in fact grow our careers in the way that we want to. I also mentioned that communication skills can improve the quality of your life. How is that so? When you think about your life and your happiest moments, or you ask somebody to define what is it that makes your life great, it always comes back to relationships. We as a human species are a tribal group of people, and we rely on one another in order to get things done and to perform at our highest potential. And so at the root of having quality of life, we also must have relationships. In order for relationships to happen and to be healthy and fruitful, we need to be able to communicate, because relationships are built on communication. It's our ability to relate to another person. If we have weak communication skills, we will have weak relationships. If we have strong communication skills, we will have strong relationships. So having strong communication skills lead to strong relationships, which lead to a higher quality of life. Because if our quality of life is built on the quality of our relationships, then it's imperative that we develop our ability to communicate so that we can have the healthiest and most productive relationships with our family, our friends, our colleagues as we can. Next, let's talk about what defines effective communication. As I mentioned, communication is talked about broadly, and when I meet people and they say they want to improve their communication skills, they feel lost because no one has ever talked to them about what exactly that means. So my goal in this section is to help you understand the components of communication and what role they play in you being seen as an effective communicator. This is what I call the pyramid of communication. Anytime you communicate, what you are doing is going to fall into one of these three sections of the pyramid. It's either going to fall within presence, which is at the bottom, or within message organization, or at the top, how you're interacting with other people. And I'm going to talk about each of these in more detail now. Presence is simply your physical and vocal skills of communication. It's how others see you when you're communicating, and it's how they hear you say whatever it is you are saying. Why does presence matter? Why does it matter that we have physical and vocal skills when it comes to communication? When we communicate, our number one goal is for people to understand and act on the message that we're trying to share with them. In order for them to do that, three things need to be present. There's body language. So again, those physical skills. How do we look as we are communicating whatever we're sharing? Then there's tone of voice. How do they hear us say what we are saying? So that could be your volume, how quickly or slowly you speak, how much you articulate or enunciate your words. And then finally at the bottom there, that third one is your actual words or the content of your message. These three things are present in each time we communicate a message to somebody, and they have equal importance. So if we look at the full package, each of these is about 33% important to our ability to help people understand or interpret our messages. So when we look at this, that means that over 66% of our ability to have our messages interpreted the way we want them to comes from nonverbal. It comes from our body language and the tone of our voice. A lot of us tend to think that as long as what I'm saying is logical and it sounds smart, then people will have no trouble at all understanding or interpreting my message. But that's not true, because people only use your words. They only use them 33% to interpret your message. The other 66% of the time, they're paying attention to what you're doing with your body, and they're paying attention to how you are actually saying the words that are being said. And that's why presence is so important. We have to understand how to manage our body language and our tone of voice in a way that makes it easy for people to interpret our messages the way we want them to be interpreted. That next level of the pyramid, that middle level, was message organization. When it comes to organizing a message or how you say what you say, there are four components. There's your audience. Before we ever think about what we're going to say, we need to think about who are we saying it to. I would not communicate to a group of 14-year-old boys in the same way that I would communicate to my group of adult clients that are 50 years or older. I need to tailor my communication to who my audience is. Once I know my audience, I have to know what is my purpose in speaking to them. Is it to motivate them to do something? Do I need them to take an action of some sort? Or am I simply trying to educate them? Once I know my purpose, I can then put my content into a structure that will allow me to achieve that purpose. So if I want my clients if I'm trying to convince them to train 3 days a week, I need to build my message in a way that gets them at the end of it to say, you're absolutely right, I should be training 3 days a week, where do I sign? And how we structure our message can help play a role in that. And then finally, when we share a message, it can't just be our personal opinions. People make decisions based on what we call evidence. And that's where things like testimonials come in. People won't train with you. Some people will train with you because they already know you and like you, but you'll get new clients based on referrals. So if they have a trusted friend say that they enjoy working with you, then they're more likely to train with you because they're supporting evidence that you're a great trainer or coach. When we are sharing messages with people, if you are trying to convince people that they should include carbohydrates in their diet, you need to do more than just saying that. You need to tell them, okay, here's a study that shows that people who include carbohydrates perform better for longer, because it's that evidence that gets people to say, okay, this makes sense. I believe what she or he is saying. When we don't consider these four things, when we just say whatever we want to say in whatever way we want to say it, this is what our message looks like or sounds like to our audience. They know that we have just given them a ton of important information, but it's not put together in a way that makes sense to them. And so we leave them feeling like they have to figure out for themselves how to put the pieces together so that our message makes sense. If we take the extra time to consider our audience, understand our purpose in speaking to them, and structure our message in a way that makes sense to them, it looks more like this. We give them a finished product that makes sense, and it's easy for them to understand us, to act on whatever we want them to act on, or to be motivated by our message. And so our goal is to do all of the work ahead of time to package a message in a way that makes it easy for our audience or whoever we're communicating with to understand. Then that top level of the pyramid was interactions. When we interact with people, we do so on many levels, and it ranges from informal all the way to formal. Informal communication can include text messages, email, or phone conversations. As we move toward formal, then maybe it's one-on-one coaching or one-on-one conversations. More formal than that is one-to-group. So maybe you're coaching a group, or you're just speaking to a group of clients or athletes outside of the gym or in a social setting. And then the most formal form of communication is teaching, facilitating, or maybe you're standing up on stage delivering a more formal presentation. There are nuances in how we should communicate within each of these things, but the common theme among all of them is that to be successful, we need to have presence, which again is us being in control of our body language and our voice. And we also need to have an organized message. If we lack in any of those two areas, our interactions will not be successful. So when it comes to improving your communication skills, these are the three areas that we need to improve on. We need to improve our body language and our tone of voice. We need to improve our ability to organize messages in a way that makes sense to people. And we need to apply those two things to each type of interaction we have. And we need to apply them in a way that's appropriate depending on what interaction we're having, whether we're sending a text message or we're standing up on stage to deliver a presentation. Okay, so we talked about why communication skills are important, the role that they play in your ability to be successful in fitness, and how they can, in fact, improve the quality of your life. And then I just walked you through what effective communication is and how it's made up of those three components: your presence, your ability to organize a message, and then your ability to apply those two things to whatever interaction you are having. Keep those things in mind as I now walk you through the 5 communication rules, because you'll notice each rule will fall into one or more of those 3 areas. The first rule: know what you look and sound like. In order to get better at communication, you have to establish a baseline of where you're currently at. It's the same reason why when clients come to us, we take them through an assessment, whether that's FMS or any other type of assessment you might do. You don't train them and put them on a program right away because you're not sure where they're at. You wouldn't want somebody to do a 200-pound trap bar deadlift if you know that they don't have a 2 or more on an active straight leg raise with the FMS. The same goes for evaluating your communication skills. In order to improve, you have to know what you need to improve on. So I encourage you, record 3 videos of yourself, and I'm going to tell you what exactly to record in each of these 3 videos. The first video: record yourself delivering an exercise demo. These are what we see mostly on Instagram or other social media. You get in front of the camera and you talk about an exercise and how to do it and maybe modifications for that exercise. So I'd encourage you, record a video of you doing an exercise demonstration anywhere between 1 and 2 minutes. The second video that you should record is a video of you simply sitting or standing in front of a camera, as you see me doing now, and talking about your training philosophy. How do you train? Why do you train that way? What experiences have you had that have led you to train this way? Do this for anywhere between 2 and 3 minutes so that you have a recorded video of you simply sitting and just speaking candidly to the camera. The third video that you'll want to record is of you coaching either an individual or a group, and the video ideally would be between 5 and 8 minutes. Set it up on a tripod. If you have a wireless microphone, wear it. Otherwise, put the camera somewhere where you can hear your volume as well. But these would cover the range of communication areas that you likely participate in as a trainer or a coach. You probably post exercise demos on social media. You have conversations with people about the way you train and why you train that way. And then most obviously, you coach groups of people where you coach individuals. Once you have those 3 videos recorded, you are going to you're going to watch each of those videos and answer these 6 questions about each. The answers you provide should be objective. So it's simply, what do you see or hear? And they should include as much detail as possible. The first 3 questions are in regards to your physical presence. So look at your eyes. And ask yourself, where was I looking as I spoke? Was I looking down at the floor? Was I looking up at the ceiling? Was I looking all over the place, not making eye contact with anything? Just what were your eyes doing as you were speaking? The second question, what did my hands do as I spoke? Were they behind my back? Were they up and gesturing? Were my arms crossed in front of me? Were my hands in my pockets? Just what were my hands doing as I was delivering in each of those 3 videos? And then finally, your stance. How did you stand or move? Did you stay steady? Was there a constant rocking back and forth? Were you bouncing? Were you kind of just moving all around, taking little steps the entire time you were talking? Just what were your feet doing, or how were you standing or moving? The next three questions have to do with the vocal side. So how did you hear yourself in each of the videos? On a scale of 1 to 10, where was your volume? 1 would be a whisper, 10 would be a shout. Where were you at on a scale of 1 to 10? Number 5, did I speak slowly? Did I speak at a medium pace, or did I speak fast? If you are a fast talker, when you listen, ask yourself, did it sound energetic fast, or did it sound nervous fast? We all have a pretty good ear for that. And then finally, did I use any filler words? Those include like, you know, right, so, any word that typically falls within transitions or falls in a place where we're thinking about what we want to say next. Which words did you use, and when specifically did you use them? Answering these questions is my version of an FMS for fitness. This is your baseline. When you do this, you will find when you watch these videos that you'll say, I had no idea that I blank when I speak. And that might sound like on the physical side, I had no idea that I look at the floor when I speak. I had no idea that I keep my arms crossed. I had no idea that I move around constantly. On the vocal side, it might sound like, I didn't realize how softly I speak. I didn't realize how fast I talked. Or I didn't realize how I say, you know, after each sentence. We have many tics when we speak, and most of us are completely unaware of them. And unfortunately, it's difficult for people to give us that feedback because we take it personally. So take those videos of yourself, answer the questions, and then take note of what did you not realize that you were doing. And those are the areas that then you can begin to work and improve upon. You can't get better if you don't know what you're trying to improve on. It's the same thing that I said. It's the reason why we do assessments with clients before we write a program for them. If you want to improve your communication skills, you need to first see and hear yourself as others see and hear you. Rule number 2, learn how to listen. You see 10 little circles here, and each of these is going to represent what we call listening blocks. Most of us want to listen to people and we think that we're listening, but there's also usually a listening block happening that we're completely unaware of. Those 10 listening blocks are comparing, mind reading, rehearsing and judging, dreaming, identifying, advising, sparring, being right, and placating. And I'll touch on what each of these is. Before we go into each of these, just know that when we do these things, they prevent us from truly listening to the people that we're interacting with. And so as I go through them, ask yourself, do I do that? If I do that, who do I do that with? And what can I do to stop doing that so that I can truly listen to those people? The first 2, comparing and mind reading. Comparing. When we're listening to people, we sometimes do this. As they're speaking, instead of listening to the words that they're saying, we're asking ourselves, based on what they're saying, who is smarter? Are they smarter or am I smarter? Are they more competent or am I more competent? Who is more emotionally healthy? So we're not truly listening to them. Instead, we're using their words to gauge whether we're better than them or not. The second listening block is mind reading. Instead of listening, we're trying to dig deeper and think, what is the other person really thinking? And it's always based on us. We think, why are they saying this? What about me is the reason that they're saying this? And so we're focused on ourselves and we're trying to understand why this person is choosing to say this to us. when in reality, it likely doesn't have anything to do with us, but everything to do with them. So we need to be able to assume that the person is telling us everything that we need to know and not try and dig deeper or find a hidden meaning, a hidden meaning that really isn't there. The third and fourth listening blocks, rehearsing and judging. Rehearsing while someone is speaking to us. Instead of listening, we're thinking, what am I going to say when they're done talking? Our mind is working, and so we're not truly listening to the other person. The fourth listening block, judging. While someone speaks, instead of listening to them, we're thinking to ourselves, they're too emotional. They're unqualified. They don't have the right to be talking about this. Oh, this person is so arrogant. Oh, this person is coming across as needy. When we judge people with these words, again, we're not truly listening to them because we're putting a label on them. And once we put that label on them, for instance, if we think they're unqualified, no matter what they tell us, we're going to think is irrelevant because we've already judged them as not having the credentials to be able to speak about this topic. The fifth listening block is dreaming. Dreaming, when you're speaking to somebody, they say something that triggers a thought in your mind. Something is said and it takes you down into your own mind, down a rabbit hole. So as they're speaking, you are daydreaming or thinking about something in your head that is completely unrelated to what they are saying. But they're still talking, and so we're not listening. Identifying, when somebody shares something with us, we think immediately, oh, I've had a very similar experience and I know how this feels. This one time I blank. Again, we're not truly listening. Instead, we're relating and bringing everything back to us and discounting or discrediting what this person is telling us because we think we know exactly how they feel. When in reality, we have no idea how they feel because they live a completely different life than we live. But we're always bringing it back to us and how it relates to experiences that we've had. Some of us advise. We're always ready with suggestions or advice. Somebody might only need to tell us 2 or 3 sentences before we're already jumping in trying to give them suggestions about how they should handle their problems. That is not listening. Or we spar. We are someone that people would say are disagreeable. We disagree on everything and we like to argue. So we say, I disagree with that point. That can't be true. Prove it to me. When we do this, again, we're not listening because we're just thinking about our own point of view and not taking in and internalizing and trying to understand what the other person is telling us. Being right. This is a big one. No matter what, you must always be right. It is your top priority, regardless of who you're speaking to. You will do anything in your power to make sure that the person that you're speaking to knows that you're right. And when we do this, we distance ourselves. And again, we're not truly listening to other people. And then the final one is placating, which I would say is one of the more common listening blocks that we use. Placating is when we're listening to someone and we're saying, right, yes, right. When we do that and we just agree with everything that they're saying, but we're not truly interested in what they're actually saying, we're just doing it to participate in a conversation, again, we're not truly listening. So how do you get better at listening based on those 10 listening blocks that I just walked you through? Go back through those 10 and ask yourself, which listening blocks do I use most? For me, I know that sometimes I use judging, and also there are times when I use placating. For one full day, once you become aware of what listening blocks you tend to use, for one full day, this is what I want you to do. Take note, write down each conversation that you have. That could be a lot. But write down every time you interact with somebody in a more lengthy conversation. Think back to that conversation and ask yourself, was I genuinely interested in this conversation? Yes or no? If you were or were not interested, why was that? Is it because I like this person? Is it because the topic that they were talking about was something that's relevant to me? But try to understand, why was I interested in what they were saying? Or why was I not interested in what they were saying? Within that conversation, ask yourself, did I use any of those 10 listening blocks? It could be one, it could be a few. And then, why do I think that I used that listening block with that person based on that conversation? Improving our listening skills starts again with being able to assess our poor listening habits. So this is an exercise that you can go through to better understand where your listening skills currently are and where your opportunities for improvement might lie. Rule number 3, pause after each sentence. Most of us speak too quickly. When we speak too quickly, people struggle to follow along with what we are saying. When people struggle to follow along, their answer is to simply stop paying attention, because they lose the thread of whatever it is we are talking about, and they struggle too much to understand how this makes any sense to them. So instead, they just stop listening or stop engaging with us. We need to make a habit of pausing between thoughts or pausing at the end of each sentence. If, when you are speaking, your pauses sound painfully slow to you, or your rate of speech sounds painfully slow, you're doing it right. And I delivered this slide to you using this rule. I paused after each sentence. Most of us speak too quickly. And the only way we can slow ourselves down is to build in a pause after each thought or after we complete saying a sentence. Rule number 4, be assertive. Assertive falls between passive and aggressive. What is passive? Passive is just as it sounds, but what it can look and sound like. It's when we say things like, I'm not really sure, but, or don't trust me completely on this, but I think this. In my opinion, this. We also, if we're a passive person, we find it difficult to make requests. We find it difficult to ask people for things. When we do make requests, they're typically indirect, meaning that we scoot around the bush. We say everything but what we truly need or want. And passive people tend to put others' needs before their own needs. And so at some point you're feeling drained because you're constantly saying yes and sacrificing yourself so that you can say yes to all these other people, but you don't ever in turn then ask for what you need. On the opposite end of the spectrum is aggressive. Aggressive is that you communicate at the expense of others. You don't care what people think of you. You don't care if you hurt their feelings. You just want to say what you say. If you are someone who is a brutally honest person, this is an excuse that these people use, is they say, I'd rather just be fully honest. That's the best place to be. But their honesty comes at the expense of others. They use a lot of sarcastic comments, or they put people down. When it comes to asking for their needs or wants, they communicate them as demands as opposed to making requests. When we are on either of these sides, when we're passive or we're aggressive, there are a lot of negative consequences come as a result of that. If we're passive, we become resentful because we're always sacrificing for somebody else. We can feel anger toward ourselves and towards others because we feel like we're being used. Typically, passive people suffer from low self-esteem and sometimes even depression. Where on the flip side of that, people who are overly aggressive, they create a distance between themselves and other people. Their relationships are rooted in fear because people are afraid of how honest or sarcastic or cruel they might be. They're out of control of their emotions. Every time they feel emotional about something, they react without thinking about how what they say is going to affect others. And they're typically living in a world of high stress because everything seems upsetting to them. So how do you fall in the middle and be assertive? To be assertive, you need to make clear, direct statements. When you make statements, before you open your mouth, you consider how what you are going to say is going to affect the other person. If it is going to negatively affect the other person, you take more time to consider how you might say it in a way that doesn't leave them feeling bad about themselves. And also, assertive people are self-assured. They're confident in themselves. They know that they have the ability to ask for what they want and need. And they know that when they do that, they're not stepping on other people in order to make it happen. I want to give you an example of an assertive statement. Let's say your client comes in late for a session. An assertive statement would sound like, when you're late for your session, I feel frustrated because we can't get through your full program, which means that we might not achieve the results that you're intent on seeing. I need you to be on time. How can we make that happen? That is an example of what being an assertive person sounds like. A passive statement in that same scenario might sound like, oh, you're a little bit late today, but that's okay. We'll just skip over the warm-up and just start in with the strength exercises. So you mentioned that they're late, but you don't share that you're frustrated about it. You don't share the consequences of them being late. And also you sacrifice the quality of the program because you don't want to get into a conflict with that person. An aggressive version of this statement might sound like, well, you're 15 minutes late. So why don't we just reschedule because we've wasted all this time already. Okay, so it's a complete put down. You shut the other person down. You come across as angry. Falling somewhere in the middle simply calls the other person, calls their attention to their behavior. This is what you did. This is how it made me feel. These are the consequences of your actions. And then I make a direct request for my need. I need you to do this. How can we make that happen? The final rule is knowing the nuances. I'm going to talk you through a few nuances for these 3 forms of communication. When you're sending emails, when you're sending text messages or just quick messages on WhatsApp, or when you're posting or interacting on social media. When you are emailing, my best advice is to maximize the subject line. People use the subject line, 1, to determine whether they're going to open the email to read it or not. And secondly, they use the subject line to search for the email later down the road if they want to reference it. We need to put as much information in the subject line as we can so that the person knows exactly the point of my email. And if they search it later, I've put in words that make it easy for them to search for the email. Put your point up front. When people read, they read in what's called an F, the letter F format. So they read almost all of what's at the top. In the next paragraph or section, they read a little bit less than that. And then what's below the second paragraph or section, they completely skim through. Most of us tend to put our message or our request at the bottom of an email. And so if you've ever had someone respond to an email in which you asked them multiple questions, and in the response, they didn't answer any of your questions, it was probably because your questions were at the bottom. Your questions should have been at the top. If you want them to do something, put that at the very top and then elaborate on it underneath. Proofread. Some people, misspelling and grammar errors don't bother them. Other people hate it and they think less of you because you make spelling errors. So just err on the side of being overly cautious and proofread anything before you send it. Cool off before sending. I'm sure we've all done it, but we tend to communicate off of emotion. And I've received emails that people have sent when they're angry, when they're frustrated, or when they're upset in some way, and it never ends well. If you are upset and you are going to be communicating that with someone else in an email, I would suggest that you write it on paper first, sleep on it, and then decide if you still want to send that email. It's not usually a good idea to communicate something emotional in an email. Assume that your emails are public. Although we're emailing one-on-one with a person, we almost always assume that it's just a conversation between me and someone else, but we forget that emails are public. At any point, the entire world can see your emails. Think about all of the political scandals and just instances in which emails are brought forward that people then get fired from jobs for. So do not put something in an email that could get you in trouble later down the line or that you wouldn't want the entire world to see. In that case, I would suggest you pick up the phone and communicate that message over the phone instead or in person. Listen. To be a listener, a good listener when it comes to email, that means that you're a good responder. When people email you, email them back quickly. I'm not saying within 1 or 2 hours, but make it a habit of checking your email once or twice a day. It says something about you when people don't get responses to emails for multiple days. It's frustrating. So if you communicate with email, even if you're not sure how to respond, it's a good idea to respond and say, I'm going to need a few days to sit on this and think about what I want to say, so I'll email you back in a few days. That way they know you received their email and they know when to anticipate your response. And then finally, respect privacy. This has to do with using the BCC section of an email where you blind copy people. When you send out a group email, do not assume that everyone wants their email address shared with all of the other people in the group. An email address, sharing someone's email address nowadays can be the equivalent of sharing their home address. Not everyone wants people to know what their email address is. So unless you're on a group of people that already know one another, if you are sending a large group email and many of the people on the email don't know one another, put all of their emails into the BCC section of the email so that you can protect their privacy. Texting. When you are texting, and this mostly has to do with professional texting, and so if it's your clients or another colleague in the field, avoid abbreviations and acronyms. We use short acronyms and abbreviations when texting to save time, but it can cause a lot of friction in a text message if the person doesn't know what that acronym means. And sometimes people feel stupid if they don't know what it means. And so now you've just made them feel stupid. Instead, take the extra minute to just spell out the words that you want to use. That way it's crystal clear and there's no chance that your message will be misinterpreted. Proofread your text messages. One of the most frustrating things when you're communicating in a professional environment over text messages is when you send one text and then you send 4 more correcting all of the spelling or grammar errors you made in the first text. Take the extra minute to read through it once or twice, correct your spelling and grammar errors, and then send one final message. Consider calling instead. We've gotten so used to texting versus communicating on the phone or in person. And it's really a reason why so many of us, for being as connected as we all are, feel very disconnected and isolated. If you have the opportunity to call instead of text, do it. It's always preferred, and it builds a far better and higher quality relationship than just texting with someone will. Add feeling. When we are communicating in a text message, people do not know what our tone is. The only way to communicate tone is by using emojis and by using punctuation like exclamation points or ... We need to try and convey our tone so that it's not misinterpreted. If I am sending an excited text message, I might choose to include a smiley face emoji so that they know that I'm happy about it. Only discuss casual topics on text messages. If you have something that you're upset about, if you want to confront someone on a mistake they made or something that you'd like them to correct, don't do it over a text message. There's too much uncertainty in people understanding or interpreting our messages. So pick up the phone and call or have a face-to-face conversation. Only casual topics should be left to text messages. And then avoid all caps. This is the equivalent of shouting. A lot of people write in all capital letters. It's too much, it's too aggressive, so avoid using all capital letters. And then finally, social media. Do not overexpose yourself. We have gotten so used to seeing into the intricate details of everyone's life on social media that we think it's normal. We have normalized knowing everything about everyone. But when it comes to being a professional, you can overexpose yourself. And it can cost you jobs, it can cost you opportunities, it can cost you friendships, and you won't ever know it because those people won't share with you. So be cautious and only share what absolutely needs to be shared on social media. Review old posts and pictures. Once a year, I go back to the very beginning of all of my social media channels and I delete content that I am either not proud of or that I no longer see that it fits who I am today. And so I'd encourage you to go back and evaluate your posts and your comments and things from years ago and ask yourself, if somebody sees this today, is it a reflection of who I am? And if it's not, remove it, because we've seen, especially over the last month with what's going on in the world, that people are digging up old posts that people have made that are now incriminating them today. Beware of people you don't know. I personally, on social media, on my personal account, do not accept friend requests from anybody that I do not personally know. And that's why I have a business account. You never know who these people are, what role they might play in your career someday. And so I would encourage you to think twice before allowing anyone and everyone to follow you. Obviously, that's different if it's a business specific page, but if you share your personal life, I'd encourage you from a communication standpoint to consider making it private. And then finally, ask yourself these 3 questions. If my client sees what I've posted on social media, what will they think of me? Could this post hurt my employer's reputation? Which would mean, could what I'm posting eventually cost me my job? Would I be okay with this being on the front page of a major newspaper? What we post online is public. So beware and don't allow yourself to overexpose and share everything. It doesn't develop the type of professional reputation that most of us want. And just because everyone else is doing it does not mean that you have to do it. And I would encourage you, do not get sucked in to this environment that we have where people share everything about their life. Save that for the people that you know and trust. So recapping the 5 rules: know what you look like and sound like, learn how to listen and to understand what listening blocks you use, pause after each sentence, be assertive, and know the nuances of various types of communication. So what now? Practice only on the days that you eat. It's a little bit of a play on words, but every single day is an opportunity to improve your communication skills. I hope you took at least one idea away from this presentation. Start practicing it tomorrow or today. Every time you open your mouth, every time you write an email, every time you send a text message, you have an opportunity to improve your communication skills. And Felix, if you go on my website, I have this PDF that I made. It's a 7-page PDF, and it's the 3 communication challenges that fitness professionals face and what to do about them. It is in English, but Felix, I can send this to you and maybe we can work to get it translated. But for those on the call, if you go to that website, 9to5athlete.com, and you sign up for the monthly newsletter, you will get a newsletter that you're able to download this PDF. And I'll work with Felix to maybe have it translated for you all. But I am working on getting a communication certification course up at some point over the next few months. And so if you're interested in this content, I send out a monthly newsletter, sign up for that. It's just only about developing communication skills. And so if this topic interests you, I'd encourage you to do that. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. I could hear people over there saying, yeah, woo. Very good. Jenny, yeah, definitely we can have this PDF in English and translate everything in Portuguese.
Okay.
It will take some days, but definitely our team can do this for us. I truly believe that it will be very important for people to have this whole information in Portuguese. And I have to say for people, if you are on the chat, if you are writing some questions at the chat, we will not be able to answer your questions. Please go to the Q&A box and make your question over there. Jenny, I didn't open yet, but I see almost 10 questions here, and start to getting bigger and bigger. People are very excited. So no rush here. Let's try to answer everyone here. From Wellington Lima, do you agree that the path to success is driven by the state of physical well-being and mental?
I'm sorry, he or she is asking if success is your physical and mental health.
Is Wellington, is he? Yeah, he's asking, do you agree that the path to success is driven by the state of physical well-being and mental?
Yes. Success looks different for everybody. The way that I have chosen to define success in this specific presentation is in regards to professional or career success, and maybe not so much lifestyle success. And that's why I mentioned that communication skills are integral to success, because it's rooted in relationships, and our relationships can only be as good as our communication skills are. But yes, personally, I agree that our physical and mental well-being or health is important, because if we don't have those two things, we just can't function in the world at all. But then on top of that, developing our ability to communicate well and in a healthy way with the people that we interact with is also, I would include on that list as well.
Great. From Yuri Miranda just say, congratulations, very good lecture. Juliana say amazing. Fabiana says congratulations, excellent. Leonardo Oliveira, what do you know about the body be exposure? What do you know about, one moment, because it's
Is he asking about body language?
I think so, because if I translate in Portuguese, it not make sense, but what do you know about the body, the physical exposure, more than the content?
Okay, so I didn't touch on specifically what to do with your body language. If that is content that you're interested in, I did a previous webinar with CFSC that's in there, but let me touch quickly on what the ideal body language is for communicating and having a strong presence.
Okay.
If you are standing and speaking, you want your feet to be grounded, 50% of your weight in your left leg, 50% of your weight in your right leg. Too many of us have a constant movement while we're speaking. And the more that we're moving our feet as we speak, the more distracting it is to the people who are listening to us, and they have a hard time listening because they're watching how much we are moving. So in terms of posture, I would encourage you, if you do not have to move because you're going to demonstrate something, just ground your feet and stand balanced in each leg. In terms of your hands, your posture your neutral posture. So when you are not gesturing, your arms should be just laying right down at your sides, flat against your sides. When you want to gesture, you want your arms to come up above your waist and gesture with open hands, as you've seen me doing during this webinar. Whenever I get to a place that I put a period or a pause, I take a pause, I let my arms come all the way back down to my sides to reset at neutral. So those are the two, and then, I'm sorry, eye contact was the third physical.
Okay.
When you speak to people, it is imperative that you look at them and speak to them as individuals. So in a one-on-one conversation, I want to spend most of my time looking and speaking at the other person. Felix, let me plug in my computer really quick. Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, so, and then when you speak to a group, let's say you're coaching a group, you want to look at one person at a time. So I say something to one person, I pause, I look at someone new, and I say something to that person, I pause, I look at someone new. But I'm making focused eye contact all the time. I'm not ever scanning around the room.
And the eye contact building more trust, right?
When the only way to engage with people is to look them in the eyes. When we don't look at people, it gives them permission to check out. Mm-hmm. When we make eye contact with people, they intuitively feel like they have to return the favor. So if you're looking at me, I feel like I have to look at you, which means that I'm more likely to listen to you. Mm-hmm. So if you want people to listen to you, you need to make eye contact with individuals and have one-on-one conversations within a group setting.
Got it. Got it. Amazing. Very good tips here. Tiago Silveira. Just very good presentation. Thank you so much for the information. I took note about everything, and I will put in the practical component tomorrow. Really good.
Awesome.
Fabiano Jesus, we want this material in PDF Portuguese, please. Michelle Rafaela. Jenny, what is the best way to communicate with teenagers?
It would be helpful if it was more specific, but I can give one general rule. And this isn't only for teenagers, because I think inside of every person, there's a child that wants to be heard and understood. Listening, the reason why I chose to include listening as one of the 5 rules in this presentation is because of how important it is in establishing and building positive and healthy relationships with people. If no matter how good you are at communicating and speaking, if you cannot make people feel and see that you are truly interested in listening to what they have to say and not judging them and just allowing them to communicate their needs and their feelings, you're going to lose them at some point. I think why people struggle to communicate with teenagers, and maybe this is like a group of 14 or 15-year-olds that you might be training, is that they're constantly just being parented. People are constantly telling them what to do, how to do it, and they leave them very little authority to make decisions for themselves. And so reminding them, this is what I need you to do, and I trust that you're going to be able to do that, and then allowing them the freedom to figure it out and prove you right, instead of assuming that they're going to mess it up or that they're incapable of doing something the way you want them to. You need to show them that you trust them and that you think they're mature. And if you treat people like they are reasonable, mature adults, they will behave like reasonable, mature adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so giving them and being curious about what they're struggling with and validating their experience and saying it's okay to be upset and not, oh, don't be upset about that. That doesn't mean anything. That invalidates them. And so pay attention to those listening blocks, give them room to speak. And then when you want them to do things, talk to them as if you're talking to a reasonable adult and tell them that you trust them.
Yes, if I understood right, you are basically saying that do not be another parent situation.
Correct.
Do not be so bossy with them, right? Be more, building a better relationship, trust them and make them trust you, right? Good.
Right.
It's funny because when I use my experience here, just to add quickly here, I never be the boring coach with the teenagers, and they always make a lot of fun with me at the sessions, and we always have good sessions, and the parents always give me good feedbacks. But I didn't realize until now that I'm not another parent. I'm not just trying to be a friend.
Right. Right. Well, and going back to the presentation, that rule on being assertive can help here, because when a teenager makes a mistake, which they will inevitably do, they're not adults yet, instead of judging them and putting them down or making them feel bad about a mistake, using that approach of, this is what I saw that happened, this is how it made me feel, or the consequences of your actions, and then making a request. The next time this happens, will you be able to do this instead? And then giving them the opportunity to prove to you that they can do it differently the next time, as opposed to just reprimanding them when they don't do it right the first time.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. From Marcus Ferreira, I would like to have more reference about this topic. Could be possible send something for me later. I think it's something that we can, maybe if you don't mind, on the PDF that I send for them later tomorrow, maybe I could add some other reference, some other research, some other information for them.
Sure, I can recommend some books to you, Felix.
Perfect. From Anderson de Souza, it's not a question, it's just a comment. Amazing topic. Congratulations, Jenny. This topic is very, very important, extremely quality here. Very good. From Pedro Henrique, about the volume of your voice when you talk. If you use a scale from 0 to 10, what is the best volume? What is the most ideal here?
There are two volumes that I would coach you to use. If you are speaking just one-on-one, you use your normal one-on-one volume, which usually falls between a 5 and a 6. When you are addressing a group, whether that be coaching or maybe you're delivering a presentation, your volume needs to be closer to an 8. When I coach people in presentation skills, the number one thing that people don't do enough of is project their volume. When you'll know that you're in the right spot, if it feels like you're yelling, because we spend most of our day communicating in that one-to-one volume. So when we go to project our voice, it should feel slightly unnatural because we don't spend most of our day in that volume. I've never coached anybody that they are too loud. So if that tells you something, and I've coached hundreds of people now, if that tells you something, the louder the better, because when we speak louder, you can hear more inflection in our voice, and it also helps to get across our passion and our enthusiasm for our message. And people who speak loudly are looked at as more confident than those people who speak softly. If you want to come across as confident, project yourself more.
Perfect. From Bruna, Jenny, first of all, congratulations for your presentation. I'd like to let you know that I love the videos with your daughter. Is Jenny? Oh, is Rainy. And I'd like to know if you could give more tips or advice about how to communicate better at the Instagram. What is better in your opinion? Videos, text, pictures? What do you think?
On Instagram, because of the type of platform it is, videos will always be best. That's not to say that you can't post pictures and captions, but just know that for the most part, people don't read captions in their entirety. If you have something important to say, put it in a video, because people being able to listen to you talk about it as opposed to read it in your words, you'll get more engagement. So I'd always say, take a video versus writing a caption. And then some best practices for taking videos for Instagram. Make sure that however the video is positioned, that it allows them to see more than just a talking head. So just as you see me in my camera pane, I set my camera back away from me so that as I presented, you could see my gestures. So when you present on Instagram, the more of your body we can see, the better. Because that's, again, how we interpret messages, is we see the physical side. So when people take Instagram videos and they're only from the shoulders up, it just looks like a talking face. We need to see more action from the body.
Perfect, perfect. From Ulises Rodriguez, how can we take care about aggressive people that you try to communicate as a speaker, for example? You are the speaker and you have the audience, and you have someone in the audience that is aggressive with you. How can we create this or control this situation?
Well, there are two scenarios that I'm thinking about. That could be in a more formal setting in which maybe you gave a presentation and somebody is aggressive during question and answer, or you're coaching a group and somebody within the group is aggressive. If you're giving a presentation and somebody is aggressive because maybe they disagree with what you said in your presentation, you don't want to get into an argument with people in front of other people. And so the best course of action is to acknowledge that they are upset. I can see that this is making you angry or that you disagree with what I've said. I want to learn more about why you feel that way. Can we have a conversation at the end of the day? If you're in a group coaching setting and someone within the group is giving you a hard time, we never want to criticize people in front of others. And so I would encourage you to pull that person aside, and really what they're looking for is to be heard and seen. You don't want to argue with them. And so saying, based on your tone of voice or what you said in the group, I can see that you're upset. What is it specifically that's upsetting to you? And then listen to them. Try to understand why they are upset. Remind yourself that most people are reasonable, nice people who just get emotional. And then try to figure out, what could I do to help this situation right now, and ask them to guide you about what they are needing. Most people who are aggressive in nature, they struggle to ask for what they need. And so the way they do it is just by asking with more intensity, which makes them more aggressive. So try to give them a safe space to say, what is it that you're needing from me? You're upset. What is it that I can do for you to help you be less upset? You'd be surprised at how well they'll react to you, because most of the time, instead of people just simply saying, tell me what you need, they're arguing back and forth with them because they're getting defensive. You can't take it personally. The minute we start to take things personally, when somebody is attacking us, then it becomes an emotional battle and nothing good happens from it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if somebody is so aggressive and there's no talking them down from their emotions, do not engage with them. I would simply say, you are clearly very upset. I don't think we can have a productive conversation about this right now. Would you be willing to talk about this with me tomorrow? You do not have to engage just because somebody wants you to engage with them. You can say no, and you can suggest an alternate time when you think that they might be cooled down a little bit.
Very good. Danielle here saying, Danielle, I have to say in Portuguese. Danielle saying, just would like to say thank you so much for the amazing lecture. Gratitude for you and the speaker. Very good.
Thank you.
Leonardo is the same guy that asked before, and we had some, we missed something here. He's trying to explain better.
Okay.
Exposure about the body instead the content of your lecture. You talk about this on the webinar on the beginning.
Okay, so when we communicate, our goal of communication is to say something, whether it's in writing or vocally, and for the person or people that we are saying it to understand us. For that to happen, it's not only about our words or the content. I can have the best idea in the world, but if my body language says that I'm not confident in what I'm saying because maybe I'm not making eye contact, or my voice is low, no matter how good my content is, people are going to be reading my body language and listening to my voice, and there will be a disconnect. So many people in our industry spend too much time trying to get the content right without appreciating how they are actually going about communicating that content. And so there's a disconnect. Their ideas are awesome, but nobody is interacting or acting on their ideas because the way they've shared it isn't resonating with the audience. So toward the beginning, I talked about technical skills and communication skills. Of course, it's important to develop your technical knowledge and skills and be able to do your job really well. But it is as equally as important to learn how you go about sharing that information with specific people so that all of your ideas can come to life and not just sit in your head and nothing happens with them.
Perfect.
I don't know if I answered this question, but
I think, yeah,
just
you're clear, a little bit clear now. Claudio Milani is saying, excellent, was very good time, very good quality time here. I'd like to have some more reference about
okay.
authors and about the topic.
Okay.
Carlos Pazos, do you know some other way to keep a good communication that could be clear and efficient, not just for the clients, but also for other coaches around?
The biggest mistake that I see trainers and coaches making is that when they are sharing content or messages, whatever that might be, they're trying to speak to both clients and their colleagues or other coaches in the industry. They make videos that they say they want their clients to watch, but in the video they're using anatomical terminology that clients do not understand because they want their other coaches to think that they're smart. When you are speaking to clients, it is going to be different than when you are speaking to coaches. And I encourage all of you to, if you're currently doing it, stop making content that you want both clients and coaches to read and separate it. If you're making exercise demo videos for your clients, you should use friendly terminology, no anatomical terms. You should speak conversationally and it should be lighthearted. Whereas if I'm making exercise demonstrations for other coaches to use, I might choose to use anatomical terminology. I might choose to share more nuanced cues about the exercise, but those will not resonate with my clients. So think about your audience. That's why in that message organization, we need to know who we're speaking to first, because that will determine how we communicate our message and what content we choose to share.
Very good. From Ricardo Mendonça, congratulations for the amazing lecture. Very good information, much more important for us that we work with people every day. Very good. From Lucio, Jenny, congratulations from your lecture. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. As a personal training, I'm trying to know each client as a whole human being, not just physically, but also the regular behaviors, also a little bit about your daily routine at the job, and hangout time with family time, because on this way I can have a better communication in an individually situation with each client. Do you
Good.
believe that this is a good way to do it?
I do. It goes back to what's at the foundation of healthy relationships, and it can go a few ways. It's called self-disclosure, but not only do you need to know about all of those things that you mentioned about your clients, what they're doing at work, what their relationships are like, what their daily routines are like, but you also need to be disclosing some things about yourself over the long term with your clients, because that's what builds a balanced, healthy relationship. It can't just be you learning everything about them, but them not knowing anything about you, because then they feel distant from you. And so I mentioned in the social media section at the end of the presentation, you don't want to overexpose yourself, but once you have a trusting relationship with a client, begin to open up about yourself a little bit as well, because that way they can relate to you as a human being, and that will develop a level of trust that you can't get from keeping everything surface level and never talking about your own points of view or your own struggles and those types of things. That comes over time. You don't want to do that right away, but to your point on the question, keep doing that with your clients. but over time begin to open up a little bit about yourself too, so that they can feel like they're participating in a back and forth relationship.
Good, very good. From Camila Lima, what is amazing lecture. Thank you so much for sharing with us a lot of knowledge. I want to be in touch with you. I want to see more about your work. I love it. Jenny, you teach us how can we uh, watch better the rules about learn how to listen and try to find the real why behind this and why we do the and why we should do all these 10 rules that you mentioned before. From the moment that you understand the whys and why you should do some different stuff, how we could fix these possible mistakes that we can find. And when you see this with another people, do you act different? She's saying about how can we compare mind reading and researching. She's trying to understand, as soon you find the mistakes, how can we fix and what is the best way?
So the first thing I would suggest is if you Google listening blocks, many resources will come up about all of the ways that we block ourselves from listening to other people. So I gave you 10 of them, but there are a couple of more that I did not include. The first step is to simply become aware of the blocks that you use. And for instance, if you find yourself when you're speaking to people, you are judging them, meaning you're not fully listening because they're annoying to you or they're coming across as needy, or you think to yourself, this person is not qualified to be speaking about this topic. Once you become aware that you are doing it, you need to ask yourself, what good is coming from me using this listening block? Or what harm will come from me removing this listening block and simply allowing this person to speak and to me to be curious about what they have to say? Most listening blocks do not help us at all. They simply distance us from other people. And we have to remember that every person that we speak to has something to teach us, even if what they are teaching us is what not to do. A lot of listening blocks come from ego, and this is a waste of my time. This person is wasting my time. I don't really want to listen to them. But as much as we think we're hiding that, people get that sense, and they can see and feel that we're not truly listening to them. So if that person is an important part of your career, if they are a client that you need to have because they come and see you 3 days a week, you have to figure out a way to get over those listening blocks and improve how you listen to them, because otherwise eventually they're going to leave, or they'll stop interacting with you in the way you need them to. Whereas if you find that you do this with people that you see every once in a while and you don't care to interact with so much, that might be someone that you just say, wow, I realize that I have no interest in engaging with them or listening to them. Maybe this is somebody that I don't want to continue to pursue a relationship with. I think they can just cue us into both ourselves and then also the status of the relationships that we have with various people, which will allow us to make decisions on whether we want to improve those relationships, or maybe it's a sign that it's time to let go of certain relationships and move on.
Perfect. Jenny, it's amazing how people don't stop to send some questions. Unfortunately, we cannot answer everyone here, especially because we have Bruno in the other side, and Bruno has some limitations to keep with good quality. I will pick just 2 questions here, and I took a lot of pictures here. I will send for you, and we can try to answer everyone. But I'm very excited to see how people really like it, and a lot of giving good feedbacks for us. Tiago Silveira, I'm a joker guy. I really like to play. How do you see this could create some problems for me?
When the only problem that I see is that there's, based on what you've just said, that there's not flexibility in how you interact with people. So we meet people who are, oh, I'm the class clown, or I'm always the serious one. We need to, just in the same way that you use different methodologies in training, we need to be able to access different types of communication styles and not always be the joker guy. Because there are moments when that is okay, but there are many moments when doing so will frustrate other people. You will not be taken as seriously as you might want to be taken when it comes to your career. And so we need, for you, I would just suggest practice exploring other types of communication styles. And those might depend on who you're interacting with, but okay, today I'm going to practice being more serious and not poking fun of people or not making a sarcastic remark or joke about when this person says something, but you need to widen out your ability to be flexible in how you communicate. We don't want to have one reputation that we're not serious ever, because then we get pigeonholed and people only consider us the joking type of person, and they'll never engage with us in a serious way, which can ultimately harm our ability to reach new levels in our career.
Good. Last one, unfortunately, but I see that people could be here a few more minutes. From Claudia Cecilia, how can we give some feedbacks without people feel some offense about this? Because today people are very sensitive about everything.
They are. The first thing to know is that you cannot control how somebody else reacts to you. The only thing that you can control is how you choose to communicate that feedback. One of the best things that you can do, and I'm going to assume that maybe let's talk about it in context. So let's say that you work with a group of coaches, and now you know about some of these communication skills and you want to give some of your coaches feedback on their communication skills. The best thing to do is to prepare people. So if I were to go up to my other coach, I would say, I've noticed a few things about your communication style that I'd love to give you some feedback on. Is that something you'd be open to hearing? So you give them the opportunity to say yes or no on whether they want to hear the feedback. And if they say yes, the more that you can keep it objective, the better. And so saying things like, I notice that when you coach the group, you speak at a volume of a 4 on a 10 scale. Would you be willing to try speaking at an 8 the next time and seeing what happens? Again, coming back to the question that we talked about earlier about teenagers, people don't like to be told what to do. So the more, when we give feedback, we need to say, this is what I observed. This is what might be a consequence of that behavior. I'd encourage you to try this, but then it's up to them to do it, and it's not up to you. So in terms of feedback, that's what I would say, is just making objective observations, and it shouldn't sound like, oh, you sound nervous, because they can't do anything with that feedback. If somebody tells me that I sound nervous, I'll think to myself, okay, that's great to know, but what do I do about that? Like, I don't know how to not sound nervous. So you need to give them more tangible feedback, meaning when you talk softly, your voice quivers, which makes you sound nervous. So now they know, oh, maybe I need to project my voice so that it doesn't quiver, so that I won't sound nervous. So when you give feedback to people, keep it just, what did you see objectively, or what did you hear objectively? And then leave it up to them to act on it.
Got it. Very good. Just one last comment here. Thank you, Jenny. Is Pedro Henrique. Oh, we have two more in the end. Fabiano Jesus said, we want more webinars with you. And Pedro Henrique said, thank you, Jenny. I want to do your course about communication. See, I think
Awesome.
we're doing a good job here. So unfortunately, we have to stop because we want to see Bruno with a good translation process over there. But I took all the pictures here. Did you hear something when I pressed the button here? When I tapped the button, did you hear like a clicky, clicky? No? Okay, good. I was doing a lot. I said, oh my God, I hope it's not be able for people to the other side to listen to this, to hear that. Okay, Jenny, amazing, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time here. It was really, really good. And we will be in touch. We will do something really good for Brazilians. We are very, it's a big pleasure for us to have the opportunity to represent your skills, represent your communication skills, everything to make Brazilians better and better and better.
Amazing. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for having me on, Bruno, and thank you for translating the tough job, and I appreciate you both.
Very good. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you so much. And thank you for all Brazilians here, all the coaches that spend time here with us on this Sunday. I truly believe that you guys are leaving this webinar happier than before, right? And with the right information that you did the best choice here to be with us.
Yes, thank you so
much. And we'll be back soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Send me back the host, the control.
Yes, let me do that. Yes.
Yes, please. Here.
Okay, you're the host.
Very good. Thank you so much. Say hi for Brandon.
I will.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you all.
Thank you.